All right, I'm going to get started. Thanks everybody for coming. This is our enhancement cycle of our terminology workstream. As those of you know, so we have two different meetings that we're working on with Gravity terminology right now. We have our terminology new domain work and we have our terminology enhancement work. Hi, Katie. I see my partner in the good for the coding for food work, and it's great to have you all here. And next slide. Thanks everybody for joining. We do usually mute folks upon entry, but there's lots of open conversation throughout. There's intentional open conversation at the end, specifically on thoughts on modeling the program classification work. So stick around if you want to get technical. All calls are recorded. Recordings are available on the Gravity Confluence page following, and everyone's encouraged to actively participate in the discussion by using the Zoom chat. Please send comments to everybody. Just a note, if you send them just to me, I am likely to read them out loud. And it's hard to facilitate. So just say what you would say to everybody. And if it's something directly from me, you can send it after in an email. Next slide. We are a data standards development initiative that has the requirements of following Gravity Project antitrust practices. Thus, we have a responsibility to comply fully with federal and state antitrust laws. We apply these rules quite liberally, so it's not just direct avoidance of direct antitrust violation, but avoidance of behavior that might be so construed as antitrust violations. And we just hope that everybody follows this throughout the meeting today and all of our public communications. Next slide. We have a simple agenda, but it's going to take a little bit, I think. So welcome, overview, announcements, etc. And then we're really excited to present our Coding for Food Phase II draft concepts. And so this is the first week, as I mentioned last time, that we're going to be posting a draft onto the Confluence after the call. So we're going to be talking through where we stand right now on those concepts and what needs to be determined. We're going to spend the rest of the time on program classification, and this time again, not this time and every time going forward from now on, talking not just about the concepts within the classification, but community thoughts and perspectives on how best to develop the program grouper concepts, the program concepts, and then also how and where to represent it publicly, whether just on the Confluence or within HL7, et cetera. We just have some things to do. So the last half of the meeting is going to be less formal presenting than usual and more community conversation and consensus finding in real time. And then we'll close with community homework and next steps. Next slide. Next slide. So as I mentioned, terminology has two different types of meetings. I want to say this every single time just so folks know where they are. This is our enhancement cycle. We focus on enhancing terminology for previously identified domains, or we focus on developing any solutions that crosses all domains. And the new domains work focuses on developing new domain data standards and value sets, and that's the alternating meeting. The technical work stream meets Wednesdays 1 to 2, and I think I got the topic right. I realized I didn't cross-check it, Sarah B, maybe you did. But I think we're addressing the STU 3.0 roadmap review in the next meeting. If someone on the technical work stream wants to correct me, that's great. And then the implementation work stream, the next meeting's on May 29th. Yay! Yes, Corinne, our trusty program manager coming in with, yes, that's fantastic. And then the 3.0 roadmap review should be a really fun time. So anybody who cares about the implementation guide in general, it's really user-friendly meeting just to understand what we have on the roadmap and present it publicly. And so please try to come to that if you can. Again, Wednesdays 1 to 2. Next call on April 16th. And then the implementation work stream, the next topic, again, we're always trying to focus in this cycle on not just disseminating our standards, but actually proving proof of concept, basically. So addressing discussions and return on investment throughout 2025. They are bi-weekly, correct, sir, Jonathan Krause? That one is still every other week, and so we didn't have a meeting this week, so we'll have one next week. So the May topic is actually on how closed loop referral standards, as referenced and supported by the Gravity IG, address both patient and provider burden with qualitative literature to support this. It should be pretty great. And again, these are direct implementations of the FIRE concepts within our IG toward this end. So it should be fun. Any questions on the announcements? It's a pretty fun little set of talks coming your way. Next slide. Any questions? I just already asked any questions. I think we're good. We can go on to the next slide. It's been a long day, so I'm trying my best. There's the new mission/vision of Gravity is under review, but this is the one that we've been working on. The Gravity Project is striving to create a world where health and social care organizations readily share the information needed to effectively meet the social needs of individuals, advance health equity, and improve health outcomes in communities by using standard terminology and technology. Again, probably in the next month or so, the updated mission should be back to the community for as finalized by our governance committees. Next slide. We always try to ground ourselves in thanking our members. Again, we can't do what we do without them, both the members that offer financial resources to support this work and the designated members who also offer knowledge and content expertise. And then we also have our designated members who are specifically geared towards ensuring the perspective of community-based organizations and patients are woven throughout our leadership. Again, thanks to all of our 2025 projects and sponsors. Next slide. I think we present this. I think we knew about our domains at the last meeting, but we are going to be addressing domains in community neighborhood level domains in the fall. Long planned for, right? We addressed household level food insecurity. We addressed inadequate housing at the household level. And we are going to be addressing 3 concepts in neighborhood and community domains in the fall: food access, neighborhood safety, and access to green space. They're all interdependent, so really excited about preparing and planning for that work. We're also doing our enhancements that we're doing here. So that's the light green is the enhancements. Technical work stream, as we mentioned, as looking forward into STU 3.0 after finishing the STU 2.3 update, which is largely about aligning with US Core. And implementation affinity meeting carries on, just a reduced cycle. It's only quarterly now. Again, really understanding that dissemination of the base standards is now at a stage where we're not talking about that as much. We're actually talking about outcomes and proof of concept. Next slide. Okay, the last thing we say, and we try to say this every single time because it's critically true, is as we develop data standards, we are very, very plainly aware of principles of data justice, and we integrate them into our work. And so we have our data use principles that guide our work and guide implementation, the guide development and the guide implementation as well. And they are improving personal health outcomes, improving population health equity, ensuring personal control, designing appropriate solutions, ensuring accountability, and preventing, reducing, and remediating harm. You can find those principles always on the Gravity Confluence within our core materials. Next slide. And then just a level set. So if in the domain work, we are deeply leaning into all of these different use cases and activities. Within this meeting, we really are focusing on the latter half, like connecting individuals to services, getting the HCPCS codes to support core universal nationwide services. So the intervention side is largely where we lean, and any enhancements to support documentation of outcomes. Again, like leaning into what is the end goal of our work. That's all part of what we're doing here in the enhancements call. Next slide. Okay, Coding for Food. This is the last concept related meeting of the Coding for Food work and the program classification. It's mostly that we should have a rough sense of what we want to say across Coding for Food at this time, and we do. Congratulations, Katie, giving you a big thumbs up. So as I mentioned, at the end of this week, Friday end of day, the draft version of the concept for each of our Coding for Food Phase II concepts will be available on the Confluence. We'll talk more about that and next steps there when we get to that. And then we have about a month to go into just review of the concept, refinement of the concept, aiming towards that consensus vote at the end of May. And again, we'll talk again more about it, but the hope is once we have something kind of tangible you can download, we can disseminate it. So looking forward to getting feedback on what we have for you all. And aligned with this, even though you don't see it, is the program classification work, which is happening at the same time. And we're in a similar spot over there. Next slide. Any questions on the intro timeline? All right, so I'm going to get into the Coding for Food Phase II work, and I see a bunch of SMEs on the call today. My only job is to try to represent your wisdom. So if any questions, I will call you in without calling you in. So this is a forum for your wisdom. So if anybody wants to pipe in and pipe up, we would love to hear it. All right, Coding for Food Phase II. Next slide. Coding for Food is really an initiative to develop the HCPCS Level 2 terminology to support core food as medicine interventions for national standardization. Phase 1 was medically tailored meals, produce prescription, medically tailored groceries, and healthy groceries. These were all submitted to MIRAS, the CMS submission portal in January on time, and they have been accepted and are under review. Accepted for submission, not accepted for release. I just want to be clear. It might take some time to get those concepts in, but we did submit them. Phase 2 work is what we're doing right now, which is focusing on cooking and kitchen supplies. And it's actually become quite a bit, there can be a duplication of our work. So we're going to see today that we're actually likely submitting 4 concepts as opposed to just 2. But it's trying to create measurable, discrete things. Sometimes has us expand our work, just as we did with Phase 1. Tons of materials on the Confluence for review. And again, for the first time, you'll be able to download those draft concepts for review as we go on. Next slide. Again, thanks to our Coding for Food Advisory Committee. This was many years in planning. Couldn't be possible without my dear friend, Katie Ettman from Fulwell, who's led the charge, corralling all of us food-focused folk. And the committee, uniquely for Gravity, and I say this every time, there's a whole separate advisory committee given the importance of food as medicine in the national ecosystem that ensures that we're on target, and very, very grateful for all of their volunteer support. Next slide. Also very grateful to our specific SMEs, subject matter experts who are coming in for the cooking and kitchen supplies and the cooking education, teaching kitchens, food pharmacy work. Again, these are all of their names. Incredibly grateful, smart, lovely people who I get to meet with every other week. Many of them who are on the call today. Next slide. Okay, so now into the concepts. So cooking and kitchen supplies comes first. We are going to be submitting 2 core concepts, but they actually are broken up likely into 3. One, there are going to be 2 concepts likely under appliances. We'll talk more about that going forward and why. And then another concept for the kitchenware element. Drafts, again, will be available on the Confluence by end of day Friday. And please download and disseminate. I should say disseminate, not disseminated, to interested parties to ensure we have broad representation and review, right? So we are lucky to be here. Our subject matter experts are lucky to be in those meetings. We all have this designated time. There's many experts in the ecosystem, and consensus is best achieved when many perspectives are involved in it. So please get feedback, and we'd love to receive it either formally via an email or informally to Katie and I, and we'll take it to the work groups. Next slide. All right, so kitchenware. It's on two different slides because it is dense, because there is a paragraph of the concept, and then for clarity, we think we need to include all of the different exemplars and of classes and subtypes, just because it will it makes it clear what the components are capable of being. So the general concept, the short name or short title is Core Basic Kitchen Tools to Prepare, Consume, and Store Meals. And this is the wording we have now, again, open to any suggestions on reframing, phrasing. Right now, it's non-food cooking tools, trying to clarify this is not pantry items, necessary for meal preparation, consumption, and storage. And the reason why consumption is new and added here is because instruments like serving utensils are consumption tools, but they're also preparation tools. And in some instances, based on the assessment of the individual's need, we're also offering flatware or adaptive instruments. And so we added consumption because in some instances it's required. So, so that way the project can meet the household's needs. So meal preparation, consumption, and storage to meet an individual's nutrition and dietary needs. And the only reason why individuals in parentheses is I realize we still hadn't landed that yet. We talk about households, but usually provision within the CMS model is just for a person. And this is where assessment comes in. The goal is to ensure a set of necessary tools by addressing gaps after the assessment of existing supplies and an individual's needs and preferences. This is important because no provision of kitchenware is the same, right? Or can't be assumed to be the same because not dissimilar to some of the food concepts we had before, there's an assessment of what the person has and needs and will use. And the program in the existing implementations fills gaps, right? So if you have like a sauce pot, you don't give another sauce pot. If you have spatulas, you do not give another spatula, right? So what's happening is that programs are developing a list of what was provided and getting compensated based on the list, as opposed to a course set. It's not like a starter set that is always given to every single person the same way. So we had to include the assessment part in there in order to represent the way it's actually being provided. In the concept, we have an example sentence just because it's really helpful. And this is a general example because specific examples are coming in later. Oh yeah, so we actually include a call out for that, Miriam Berger. We have an adaptive highlight exactly because we want to make sure that that's called out as a possibility. For instance, a person could have a fork, but they could not have an adaptive fork. That's why the individual's needs and preferences is in the assessment, because then the person, even though they have the fork, will get the adaptive fork to meet their needs. Okay. Ooh, the things we talk about in our SME meetings. Examples of necessary tools include sharp knives, cooking and serving utensils, cooking and serving equipment, pots and pans, and tableware. Again, all of these things were this choice of wording was very intentional. And this is important just to clarify, the appliances are not included. They're dealt with elsewhere. It could be easily considered as a tool, but it's not within the purposes of this concept. And then because we're trying to explore the fact that current provisions get reimbursed based on receipts without labor, and remember, anyone who was in the Coding4Food Phase I work understands that labor is part of the USDA fruit and vegetable calculations. We're exploring a cost statement that makes accounting for administrative fees and costs, right? The cost of the person to actually get it and provide it to the individual. So this is the base description. And see, I think we've addressed most of the questions within there. And then now we go into any other questions on the basic concept. Not much has changed since we last presented it 2 weeks ago. Hi, hello, David. I'm calling you David. Hello.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
I've never called myself a SME before, so
You are
yeah,
definitely a
I'm a
subject
SME.
matter expert, David.
This is a very minor point.
Okay.
Is it worth mentioning cutting boards or surfaces? Because I know it's a cooking and serving
Oh,
utensil, but if
that's
we
fair.
don't say cutting board, we should probably add non-plastic cutting board. But I'm worried that if we don't put
Call
these
it out.
kinds of things in,
Yeah,
they'll give people a knife, but they don't have anything to cut on, and then the knife loses its sharpness. It's just a detail, but
I love it.
upper cutting board makes sense.
But
Sorry.
I actually don't think we included that in, we might have in our next slide, and we didn't. Public, Our subject matter experts, SMEs, are in separate meetings. So sometimes the brilliance of the cooking education and teaching kitchen people who are thinking about use are not, well, by design, they're not in the same meeting as the people thinking about kitchenware. So David is a cooking education use focused guy who just brought up the need to have cutting boards. Duly noted, David. Thank you.
Here's the inside baseball. If you cut on a lousy surface, your knife is no longer sharp.
No, it's true. Yes. Yes, I love it. Okay, noted. And we'll add, that seems like a really critical thing, and we'll bring it to the SMEs in a couple Mondays, right? Go team. And Katie, I know you logged it. Okay, so next, any other questions or thoughts? That's a really appropriate one. Thank you so much, David. Okay, next slide. I don't know if you hear my cat. My cat is meowing very loudly. All right, so, oh, we do have cutting board here. Hallelujah. That is partly why we had the inclusive list, David, is because we wanted to make sure things like this were not forgotten. Go team. Very. So in details, which are going to be included for exactly the reason David is stating, is that people will always try to minimize it. You want to say these are there's literally our subject matter experts thought about what a core set is. Like, what does an entity need? So let someone else. Oh, yes, yes.
Boards. I'm so glad that it was on this list. I was like, I don't remember that particular call out. So thank you.
I know. David, talk away.
Katie, this is to you. I will share what you share with me with Katie Welch, the Executive Director of the Teaching Kitchen Collaborative.
Okay.
But I would appreciate it if you could follow up with all the executive chefs of all the teaching kitchens. There are two co-chairs of the culinary committee. They should look at this list.
Great.
Because then you're getting, experts who teach cooking classes from 30 or 40 university teaching kitchens. So just
100%.
close that loop.
Love it. And that's why we have a downloadable version as of tomorrow, end of day. Cross cross-pollination. And then Jonathan's raising the question about bacteria. You can see us examining that in different types of materials, right? So we have metal and wooden, right? We have plastic and wooden, right? All notes to Sandra Curtis, who was here 2 weeks ago, who went in great depth about the harms of plastic and Teflon. We actually took that back to the group and we thought about it very carefully, about like trying to ensure that when we're giving people tools, we're giving them good tools, right? Like good tools that will not cause harm to them. So, but yes, food safety is included in our kitchen teaching education work, and the principles of it are applied in the material, like considering metal and wooden, right? Okay, and that it's metal because no plastic spoons. We were trying to be very clear. Okay, go team. So this is a specific list: sharp knives, cooking spoons, spatulas, tongs, graters, peelers, measuring cups and spoons, can openers, colanders, strainers. It depends on the region of the country you are in. We'll pick a word. Safety equipment, meat thermometers, pot holders, mixing bowls, cutting boards, wood and plastic. We still have plastic here because it's the nature of the game. Food storage, pots and pans. And then it talks about a set, like you need to have a set. So if in the assessment you have an 8 to 10 quart pot, but you don't have a smaller saucepan, you get the smaller saucepan. Saute pan, baking dishes, baking dish, cooking sheet, and then tableware, Marianne, adaptive if required, right? We put that in there because we want to make sure we're using adaptive tableware if it's necessary. Flatware, and the tableware includes flatware, plates, bowls, and baby bottles. Originally, these tableware items were not in this list, but then we realized that if it's sometimes necessary, and it sometimes is, and in provisions and programs we're sometimes giving it, and they sometimes do under the same program, and we're already saying includes but not limited to, we could include tableware in here and it would all just be a tidy set, as opposed to having to build another concept. Because if the people need it, hi David, yes.
Sharpener.
Oh, a knife sharpener. Love it. Julian, these are all lovely thoughts. Okay, knife sharpener, noted. What good is a knife without a knife sharpener, right? Chopsticks, I think we probably include them as in flatware, but we'll have to call that out. That's important. That's partly why we have the independent assessment too, trying to ensure we have culturally appropriate adaptations. Reusable straws, we actually talked about them, but I actually don't think that I don't think they're included. Thank you, Julian. And baby bottles, sippy cups, that's a nice thought. I don't even think we put a cup there. We just said flatware plates and bowls and no cups. Thank you. This is fresh off the plate off on Monday. Great job, team.
Sarah, this is Tom. I was
Tom?
wondering, what about cleaning supplies like dish soap, sponge to be able to clean your utensils after you've used them?
Yeah, so that's not usually included in these programs. We have talked about cleaning supplies. It's a little outside of scope, but it's very necessary. And I think maybe we'll try to throw that in too. But when we start to think about cleaning, part of what you'll see sorry, I'm just going off. Part of what you'll see when we start to get to appliances is trying to ensure that we're thinking about it from all the different purposes and implementations. So cleaning supplies intersects with asthma interventions as well. So it's like not just food related. And so just like we pulled out appliances, we'd probably have to pull out cleaning supplies. Because sometimes individuals are getting cleaning supplies in a food-based intervention, and sometimes getting cleaning supplies from an asthma-based intervention. Does that make sense? So if we consider it, it'll likely have to be its own code. Does that make sense, Tom? You're muted, so I hope so.
Sorry, I'm in my car, driving. Yes, it makes sense. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. David?
Last minor point, we're including plastic wrap and baggies and Tupperware, which is plastic. So I'm just concerned that we're setting the stage for perpetuating microplastics.
Yeah.
And if there are alternatives like, glass containers,
Yeah.
we should just think about it. Just put it in the parking lot. But I would hate this to enter the books and then have everybody be buying plastic for the next 10 years because now it's paid for.
I think at least our examples, you're correct, need to include non-plastic options and not be like containers as opposed to stating Tupperware.
Right. They're
Right?
also, preferably non-plastic containers because otherwise
Exactly.
the plastic ones will always be the cheaper ones. And we don't want the government to be buying, plastic for everybody.
Noted and appreciated. And I think point taken. In some instances, we talked about the instance where like individuals, like unhoused individuals might require disposable options, but we also want to give examples to support entities who can have the good stuff. 100%. Agreed. Go team. Yes, yes. Yes, and this is why, so I think as long as our options are inclusive of what the person needs, right? And that's the great thing about having that like individual assessment. And we're not only giving, like yeah, as long as our options are inclusive and allowing for personalization, I think is the point. Go team. Thank you. I love Julian's comments there. And I think, so Katie, are you capturing all the comments? You're amazing. Thank you, Bill Day. I'm sure Sarah Bahal is too. Yeah, so we did talk about that, Jonathan. We talked about like when we do things, trying to do things right for multiple purposes, right? Like not for the individual, for the community, for the environment, if that's where, yeah. 100%. Any other questions on this page? We have lots of great ideas. Go team. All right, so I'm going to keep going. Next slide is, I think, large appliances. Of course, sorry, large appliances is first. And Tom, this harkens to what I was saying before. So when we think about, because some instances give individuals the refrigerator because they need the refrigerator. Thank you, Corey. Love it. Yeah, so I mean, I'm a wax paper, wax cloth family, former organic farmer, crunchy Vermonter gal. So this is an example, Tom, where we had to unpack and build a separate concept, even from small appliances, because the use case is not just food, right? So in some instances, you are giving an individual refrigerator or a freezer to meet medication needs, right? So just like cleaning supplies are given not just for food-based purposes, so we might need a specific concept for that because it could be used like cleaning supplies with a modifier to represent allergy safe, right? This is the same way. So we had to expand our definition to talk about not just food. We're not talking, we agreed we're not talking about ovens here, and small appliances, burners, microwave ovens, that's all over there. But like we're not giving people, no instances that we saw we're giving people ranges, right? And so it's core basic large kitchen appliances to store food and medications. And then this is our definition is common across this and the next concept. Large kitchen appliances necessary to safely store food and medications. The aim is to ensure the same principle here. The aim is to ensure a set of necessary large appliances by addressing gaps after the assessment of existing appliances and an individual's needs and preferences. Examples of necessary appliances include but aren't limited refrigerators and freezers, and then the same statement. This is really just the refrigerator and freezer code. Probably because of that, we could just say it's not even examples, is the two examples of, we could probably narrow it down, but it's literally meant to represent refrigerators and freezers expanded from just food because of medications. Because many waiver implementations allow for provision of refrigerator for medically necessary medication storage. Does it make sense? So we just let it. Okay. Any questions on this? All right. So the next slide is small appliances. Again, pulled apart because the small appliances did not have the medication use case. So we were able to just talk about meals. Small kitchen appliances necessary for the meal preparation to meet an individual's nutrition and dietary needs. The aim is to ensure a set of necessary small appliances, and that is because they're often linked by medical necessity, the nutrition and dietary needs. The aim is to ensure a set of necessary small appliances by addressing gaps, same. Examples of necessary appliances include but are limited to burners, air fryers, pressure cookers, rice cookers, slow cookers, microwaves, toaster ovens, food processors, hand choppers, and blenders. And that was the comprehensive list we have. The conversations you have on a Monday at lunch. What is the best way to describe burner? We had a long conversation on it. Because sometimes we're giving unhoused individuals camp stoves as opposed, to cook, right? And again, all of this, and then we include, we thought about different food preferences and food types. Any questions on this one? And again, maybe this for the same thing, David, sending it to the chefs might be helpful because it's all about appliances. David?
The only added item that I'd raise as a question is some kind of salad spinner.
Oh, that's so nice.
Because we're going to encourage people to eat more salads and greens, and safety is a key. And we have to teach people to wash everything. So I would throw that in there.
Maybe it's actually in the other one because it's not electrified. Maybe it's a tool as opposed to an appliance.
Fine with me. I just think it's necessary.
Yeah, for fresh green, safe consumption, 100%. Noted. We'll figure out where it goes. Fantastic. Love it. Tortilla presses. Thank you. Steamers. We have maybe we can broaden because one of the things that's one of the steamers, sometimes, sorry, I'm having a thought here. You can tell I'm like backing up. You can hear the beeping sound. We try to think about concepts that can be rolled up into other concepts. Steamers are important. Steamers and rice cookers are sometimes the same thing, right? Sometimes not. Tortilla press, love it. So we'll bring it back to the SMEs in 2 weeks.
The other thought is, as long as one of your pots has a steamer basket,
Yes.
then it's a 2-for-1.
Yes. I personally note that I do not have such a pot at this time, and it makes me sad. Yes. So let's say that steamer baskets and salad spinners might go in the kitchenware element. Tortilla presses probably here. I just used a tortilla press last week. Tasty business, made gorditas. Yum, yum. Any other questions? This is great, guys. This is exactly why we do this. Okay, the version we're posting on the Confluence will not include any of your brilliance because those has to be taken back and put in the hopper, and we're going to publish what we have, and then just note that there are ongoing edits. That's what we do over the course of until the end of May. Any other questions before we move on? All right. Okay, now we're going to go into the teaching kitchen concepts. Next slide. Oh, coffee makers. How do we not include coffee makers? Wow. Thank you, Marianne. That seems kind of crucial. Electric kettle, tea kettle, coffee makers. Katie's just over there like typing away. I can see her. I'm a Bialetti gal, but that's still a coffee maker. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Marianne. Great. Okay, so now moving on to so we have coffee makers and electric kettle. So the cooking education, teaching kitchen, food pharmacy, we have kind of figured it out that in all of the implementations of these 3 words, critical for oatmeal, yes. I'm a saucepan oatmeal girl, like whole oats simmering in a pan, usually with some kind of fruit. But yes, I noted, Jillian. So across all the implementations, we have really 2 themes and concepts that came out that we unpacked. So one was a group nutrition class, and we're just trying to figure out, we have to lean into how well it's represented by the terms that already exist. There's terms for medical nutrition therapy. There's existing terms for nutrition that are unspecified. They might be able to be covered within that. And then the critical theme across all of those implementations that was the gap and kind of the focus of the work was cooking skills classes. Again, drafts are available by end of the day on Confluence on Friday. And then another thing to note is that sometimes implementations not just are focused on skills, but also focused on food provision. Luckily, we handled those concepts in phase 1. So you have nutrition only focus. We have to figure out what to do with it. Cooking skills, major focus of our work. Food provision, phase 1. Okay. Next slide. All right, so this is the working draft as of today. No significant changes since we met last week with our SMEs, I think. The basic component is education towards basic nutrition concepts and cooking skills development. And so you can see there are 3 different headers. Under basic nutrition concepts, I want to just elevate that this came from our friend David. Like, how do you describe general nutrition concepts? It's basically what people should eat more of, less of, and why. So that is the working framing of general nutrition, right? We do include adaptations for cultural preferences. And we say a may right now. We're holding, we want to say when things are not required but can happen. We have may include diet-related condition prevention and management, because there might be like a diabetes-specific teaching kitchen session, right? And so folks come in there with core diagnoses, and it's covered because of medical necessity. There's all kinds of possibilities, but that was the final thing that we were kind of weighing on in our last meeting a week ago. The skills we're aiming towards, again, we put our professor hats on and try to think about like objectives of learning. Our food procurement and storage, food safety and safe food handling, which is partly, John, we're just hearkening to that. So we're teaching people about food safety and safe food handling. That comes into the materials of choice that you use to cook with. We tried to put these in the order of how they actually happen in real world. So I go and get the food. I handle the food, using, creating, and modifying a recipe, understanding tools, like what each tool is, understanding how to safely use tools. An example of that would be knife skills, and then core cooking methods and techniques, saute, etc., etc. And then because the goal is behavior change and practice and ongoing habit forming, each of the implementations contain an element of culinary health coaching through motivational interviewing, or an example of it would be motivational interviewing towards the hardwiring the skills. We have two possibility statements, just because we examined them, decided they're nice to have but not need to have. Evidence-based curricula is recommended, but not required. And then professionals of reference, we examined whether RDs were required, or certain professionals were required, and we said multidisciplinary teams are recommended, but not required. And that was supposed to be, there's not supposed to be a slash there. Thoughts? This is not that much, not much has changed since we presented this 2 weeks ago, I don't think. Refinements, tweaking. David.
As you know, I am thrilled by this draft. But it occurs to me that there's one other idea which may or may not apply. So work with me here. In the skills development, cooking methods, techniques, again, I'll preface my remarks by saying, is this a valid item to be included? Teaching people what a portion is, understanding portion size, and its cousin is understanding satiety. These are veering into mindfulness, and they're also veering it back into nutrition understanding. But if people don't understand that, a portion of a meat protein is 4 or 6 inches, it's 4 or 6 ounces, not 10 or 12, we haven't done our job. Similarly, if they don't understand, that having 4 cups of pasta as a portion is not a smart move for a teenager, I don't know where that goes. And I don't know if it's included or it's too detailed, but portion and satiety are concepts that I think are essential.
I'm going to echo Marianne and say I think that goes under general nutrition concepts. Like, I think it's like part of what I agree, and I think we just need to call it out. So it's like, I think under general nutrition concepts we have, I think we have room to clarify that.
That would be great, even if it said including but not limited to understanding portions and satiety, something like that.
Yeah. I was just talking with the A&D recently about like overnutrition and undernutrition as a critical concept that is just like basic. Like, so I hear you. Any other thoughts? This is so fun, I have to say. This is like, it's like candy at the end of a crazy week. Oh, mindful eating. That's nice, Julian. all of our foodie clinicians. Thank you, Julian. Any other thoughts on this before? Again, this is going to be posted to the Confluence tomorrow for downloading, reflection, sharing. Again, the brilliant thoughts you've brought to bear today will not be included in it. But any other thoughts before we move on?
Miss Katie, help me make sure we get this to all the Teaching Kitchen collaborative ecosystem.
Go team. All right. Yes, Julian. And we're also grateful for the work you do doing all of that. Thank you, Julian. All right, I think we're good. So any other thoughts? And next slide, I think that's the end of the Coding for Food work. Teamwork does make the dream work. Yes.
Can I compliment you, Sarah and Katie? I'm ecstatic about this. Even as a draft, it's like very, very impressive. I think the different groups we show it to may tweak it, but you've done an amazing job in just a couple of meetings. It's really amazing. So bravo.
You have done, and we have done an amazing job. Talk about teamwork makes the dream work. The process that we all get to leverage in this is a good example of that. Thank you so much, David. And you're a critical part of it, and as is everyone on the call. Go team. All right, okay, so this formally concludes our Coding for Food section of the call. We're now going into program enhancements, which unbeknownst to anybody, especially I see some of my dear friends in program classification SMEs on the call. I really have an open conversation at the end regarding starting to think about build. I didn't tell any of you, I just dropped it in there. So I'm glad to see my friend Corey on the call. Thank you all Coding for Food friends for being on the call. Stay with us if you like. We're about to go super nerdy into program classification work. Bye, Katie. Bye, David. Okay. All right. Next slide. Okay, so we have Nicole. We have Corey. We have Monique. Oh, great. We have Keith was on the call. Did he drop? Maybe he did. No, is he still here? No, I don't see him anymore. That's okay. We're good. So program enhancements, the topic areas of program enhancements are program term analysis, program classification, and program documentation. We're only going to be talking about program classification today. I'll presenting the high level state of the classification, but because we need to start talking about it, henceforth, I am formally announcing henceforth, this call will also discuss topics in build, where to build, how to build, and what needs to be built. Susan's here. So super, super grateful. And again, we'll try to make sure that the rest of this meet, I should have announced on this meet on our subject matter expert call today, but it was a crazy day. So at least we'll get things started and start fleshing out questions and ensure our friends from Loink are here as well. Next slide. So just, I forgot, there is a topic in program gap analysis. This is just the programs we're defining as we go, we're identifying through program classification that we are then building concepts for in our normal way within Gravity. So these are all concepts that came up in program classification. They're going to be dropped into our normal syntax within Gravity. Definitions, I'm working on them. And then they'll be published within the different value sets of relevance. Again, these are just gaps that came up. Next slide. Okay, next slide. So we are in kind of the concept frame, like phase of our work in classification as well. We only have, one more domain to do, I think. Yeah, and then we're just going back through and creating a final draft. Next slide. Okay, the details. I'm going to show the slide again, a little refined. So again, extensive thanks to our subject matter experts who have now been working with us for a year. 211 LA, Find Help, Epic, Unite Us, and 2-in-1 San Diego. Suffice to say, it is not easy to create a national open classification of social care programs. It's also including every single thing under the sun. So it's taken some time. Just incredibly grateful, and we're almost there. The goal is an open classification of social care program categories and social care programs for the purposes of navigation and connection to services by health and social care providers and people who are self-navigating. We're going to lean into this today, but codified concepts for programs, but we didn't unpack it on the slide, and we're going to unpack it later, that are clearly defined and readily available in some kind of system and interoperable. And codified concepts, and those same concepts can be leveraged for other use cases like directories, documentation of service provision and enrollment, etc. And we have to publish that classification somewhere in an open format for use and then have ongoing maintenance. And luckily, so far, our SMEs are not balking at being part of some kind of limited, controlled change control process for updates. We do have a cycle of gravity where we formally update things twice a year. And so we can imagine having that process as well, and updating and editing the classification. Next slide, minimal. So the important thing is the primary work of the project, really the reconciliation across the different existing classifications. And again, each of those subject matter experts have experience in authoring and using classifications that we're all kind of creating the meta version of, are these program type groupers. We'll talk more about that in a second. There's also classifications for specific programs. This is where Gravity and 2-in-1 HSIS come into play. And then there's even more specific, like nuances or subtypes of programs. And this is where Gravity usually can't define to, but 2-in-1 HSIS does. So we'll talk more about the program groupers and the program subtypes in a second. And hopefully just have an open conversation. I might even go off camera, which would be nice. Next slide. All right, so we've domains addressed for phase 1, where food, transportation, housing, utilities, employment, material goods, social connection and engagement, physical health, mental health, substance use, and legal help. Phase 2, we just have one left. We've addressed financial assistance, direct care, technology access, safety and disaster services, and navigation to services. Thank you, Sarah Bahal. We would not be able to do any of this without the amazing Sarah, who keeps us all on target, all the different versioning. She's amazing. Next slide. So we've gone through a final review of physical health. So on Tuesday, there'll be another update released to the Confluence, which is the final review of concepts through physical health. And then you can see we're just going to be, we're working on mental health right now. And then we'll add the new draft on Tuesday. Next slide. And again, we're going to be doing, once we're done with our final draft, we're going to be doing intentional review with different partners and hopefully, ensuring that critical stakeholders are included, including friends at SAMHSA when they're able to review. Next slide. All right. So I hope everyone's ready to chat. And if not, if we just place little seeds and then come back to this every other week going forward, that's fine. But as we are finishing up again our draft, we need to start thinking about how we're going to build it. Like, what are the barriers and issues of doing so, and the considerations. And so sometimes HL7 Gravity meetings are very like presentation focused, like we just have for Coding4Food. But in this one, I hope we just start building a space where we can talk through things that and nuances and problems and collectively problem solve, because we are here and this is time built for that purpose. So we know we're going to have to, we've thought about developing codified concepts for the programs. And we know we have to publish the structure. That's the key findings here. So next slide. So there's problems, there's considerations regarding that though. I have opened the draft classification. We can drop it. This is directly, so I can open it and take you there if we need to. There are going to be slight updates on 415, but the primary questions are, in what terminology will the program grouper terminology be built? And or if it needs to be built, do the program groupers need to be in a terminology? We'll talk more about what that means in the next slides. Considerations for that are there's program specific and non-program specific groupers. Again, examples are on the next slide, so you don't have to go to the classification. In what terminology would the program concepts be built, the specific programs? So currently all program within the syntax is within SNOMED CT. Example of this is refer to Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, but where will Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program be? That is the question. Understand the goal is to enable, the structure to represent where the status of that program is. Like both that will be a tag within the classification. That could be a concept that's represented within a directory. That could be a program in a program list that then has different statuses in that list. So we have the refer to Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program already, but we don't have the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program yet. And then we also have to figure out where the classification is published. Is it published just on the Confluence in Gravity? Is it published within an HL7 artifact? Is it published someplace else? These are all things that we need to work through. And again, initial, dive bombing didn't tell anybody I was starting to build space for very, really frank conversations here. And then hopefully the end of this meeting, every other week is where we start to hash this stuff out. To explain some of the problems and interesting opportunities, I have the next slide. And we can come back. So actually, I'm going to stop here. Am I missing any questions from anyone's perspective? Super friends. Nicole, Monique, Suzanne, Corey. Are we roughly there? And no, you can tell me offline too.
Yeah, I guess with everything that's happening, you're gonna, how are we gonna maintain them and make sure the programs still exist? That's
Oh, yeah. So that's the good thing about, yeah. So most of the programs, so that's a lovely consideration. We have considered that in our program concept development for sure. So yes, hear you, heard. That's maintenance. Maintenance is going to be tricky. But that same maintenance is the maintenance that's required for Gravity terminology anyway, right? It's like
right.
yeah. So it's like that, the maintenance of the status of existing programs. Like for instance, right now, there's this conversation about what's happening with LIHEAP, right? For right now, LIHEAP exists, even though the grant process has been threatened. So should it suddenly never exist again, it would be something we need to consider to retire. Corey, you don't have to raise your hand. It's like, it's just us now. Come chat with me. I figured we ended early the last 2 times, and I'm like, I'm going to try to start us talking. So talk away, friend.
Yeah, so just I'll try to keep the brief version. So one question is about sort of, what options have you considered about where the classification will be published, and have you sort of thought through sort of pros and cons of any of them? And then the second question is, and this is probably not a new idea or thought, but does having all of these additional programs, is this kicking off more thinking about pre-coordinating? So we have referrals to program. Are you also thinking about enrolled in program or eligible for program? And so those are just 2 questions as I look at this.
So the first answer is really complicated, and I'll have to bring back all of my friends again. I thought I was going to email all of them, like Carmela and Dan and Anish and all the people we've talked to about where the classification will be published. I didn't do that because I didn't have time. But I think about I talked to. I'm going to hold space for that. On the pre-coordination aspect, we already have kind of agreed that for now, we need the only program concept for multiple purposes, but we're also not ready to dispense with pre-coordination. So specifically, because eligibility is temporary, it's so fleeting. Specifically, we're leaning into the enrolled in. We know we're going to be building enrolled in concepts for anything that's an ongoing critical program of note, right? Because we're not ready to jump the fence and leave pre-coordination yet. We've committed to that. We're not building eligibility concepts because that one is such a like a temporal thing. It's really best modeled within architecture as opposed to a concept.
Okay, thank you.
And then on where, the things I have heard from my tour of friends, which is not inclusive, is within value sets, is within HL7, is just on gravity, is within schema. Like, where's the program classification get published? Oh my Lord, the things we have heard, right? So we just kind of need to pick a lane on that after we consider uses. And I recommend it staying within the gravity HL7 like terminology ecosystem as opposed to leaving it. But
So SNOMED has been ruled out. That's sort of my last question.
Oh,
Yeah, and
No,
we have opinions on that. Just try, let's do it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead, Susan, and then I'll chime in.
oh, you go ahead first,
Yeah, I was gonna say that, Corey, it came to our attention in the last week or so that at one of the meetings of SNOMED in April, one of the groups, I can't remember which one, determined that whole hierarchies of things, like the whole world languages hierarchy, which was used with SNOMED codes to say which language is somebody's preferred language, which language is their second language, et cetera. That whole languages hierarchy, the whole occupations hierarchy, and a few others, environments are being suggested for retirement from the international release. Now, the primary reason for that, to me, appeared to be triggered by the difficulty of translators in handling that. And so my feeling is that I initially said to Sarah at that time, well, if they're going to start retiring these hierarchies, they're not going to add a programs hierarchy. On the other hand, Sarah, I did consider that these are US programs.
Mhm.
And so, you know, in the US, the translation issue goes away as an argument to not allow a program hierarchy. So I would say it's not as off the table as I thought, but your thought of maybe just getting it into HL7 is another thought.
Then Corey, you had thoughts about extension. I'm not, again, you're smarter than me on this stuff. You had a whole thought that do you want to share that one? Or do I want to put you on the spot?
I think I want to hear Susan's thought. I want to hear Susan's thoughts.
Oh yeah, Susan, go for it.
A lot of things in HL7 are going to the Terminology Health Authority and having value sets that are just, I wouldn't want to put it there. It just is going to be harder and harder to maintain in there, I think. Easiest for us would be to put it in SNOMED, as you know already they're all qualifiers, the programs are, but that's where I would go, because I don't know where there is another standard place to put a list of programs that are coded that can be validated in VSAC. And so SNOMED would be where I would want to go.
Yeah, that's our hope. Whether we'll get that achieved, I think is going to be a pretty big speed bump, but I think it would be nice to try again, but yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And then, yes, Sarah, I think what you're referring to is the last thing I'll say is the idea about how to capture sort of the relationships between the program concepts in SNOMED. Is that where you were prodding me? Yeah. So I think, if these are sort of, there are methods in SNOMED that are outside of the description logic hierarchies to capture what we call sort of navigational relationships that could be sort of separate from the sort of formal definitions. If the hierarchies for the programs, you haven't talked about the taxonomy piece of this, right? Is the taxonomy part of build?
Yeah, the taxonomy is part of the publishing for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because we have the publishing, there's the program build, terminology build, and then there's the classification relationship publishing. And they're both, yes. And so one thing of interest, oh no, you finish and then I'll show you the next
But
slide.
yeah, I think that was just in terms of options, I think I might be a little biased towards SNOMED too for a number of reasons, but I think, I threw out that navigational hierarchy reference set idea because it seemed like the taxonomy relationships that we're looking at here aren't necessarily, well aligned with formal parent-child relationships. So I just
Definitely
threw
not.
that out there as another.
Yeah, and I think that's a good idea, Corey, actually. I mean, I hadn't thought of it, but I think it's a possible solution.
Okay, thank you.
Go team. Thank you for humoring me, even though I didn't give you guys any notice. Anyway, we'll keep on. So the aim is to really try to keep thinking through this in this space every other week, and we can have internal meetings too. But we also, our friends at ASTP and HL7 have been really helpful as well. So going forward, and Loink, Rob McClure had a lot of thoughts as well. So hopefully in 2 weeks' time, we'll come back and ask the same questions, and then we'll get to a point where we take a pitch and go forward. The one thing I wanted to note when we think about this is on the next slide, is there are some complications because if we go to the next slide, our grouper concepts are not consistent in their degree of specificity, because as we built concepts for navigation and connection to services, there's some very specific program concepts as groupers. And again, the grouper concepts, this is about build, like where do we build these things, right? Is it in SNOMED? The programs that offer rides is a great example because it's very general, right? Unlikely, I mean, we're going to have to figure out what we do with things like that. But then there's specific programs that we already have, like non-emergency medical transportation is a specific program that was elevated to a grouper because it's so critical, right? And the same thing, you can see the left side is transportation and the right side is housing. We see the same thing happen within the housing side. And understanding, we just tried to get SRO in and we got a little pushback, but we'll keep trying. But there's specific programs within housing, like specific HMIS programs that were elevated to the grouper level because they're so critical. And then there's general concepts like subsidized housing applications that are not specific, right? So this just comes into play when we start to think about what it takes to get concepts into SNOMED, because some of this will get a little pushback from SNOMED, I imagine, and some of it we will not. And Monique and Susan and Sarah can testify to that. I see. Yes, a build solution, I heard. Because again, the less specific the program, the more international the application. Right? Does it make sense? Yeah. Because Gravity had to build specific programs to meet US use cases. And those are the ones that are easiest to get into SNOMED. Oh, sorry. There's like an echo, but anyway, we have pushback sometimes if we're not specific enough in our program, but then that lack of specificity is also what allows international applicability.
Mhm.
I hope I represented that well, Monique.
That makes sense to me.
And does everyone see what I'm saying here? There's like general groupers and specific program type groupers, and we're just going to have to think about that. And then understanding everything underneath, like everything that's not in bold, is something that already exists. Unless it's italicized, then it's incoming. So when we talked about the programs already existing, but just existing in the syntax, Gravity already has a transportation fuel voucher program concept, but it's referred to transportation fuel voucher, and that's in SNOMED. Taxi vouchers, paratransit, microtransit, right? Public housing agency, tribally designated housing entity. Those are all already in SNOMED because they're very clear programs with definitions, purposes, use cases, and so we got those in. Okay. I got a thumbs up from Monique. I saw that. Any other questions? Again, the hope is we'll come back and maybe it's super simple. Maybe it's like full steam ahead when we integrate it into our SNOMED work, but maybe one more meeting talking about problems and purposes and directions next in 2 weeks. And then we can think about build. Start to think about like talking with SNOMED, whether it's even possible. Sound like a plan? And my cat is being very pushy, keeping her away. I don't know if you can see her. She's like literally, oh, okay. Okay, sorry. She's pushing against the computer. She wants me to stop work. All right. Any other questions or thoughts on this? Julian, I heard the note about considering eligibility. Thank you so much. One of the things that Julian's speaking to is like categorical eligibility. When you qualify for Medicaid, you qualify for lots of things. I think it's categorical. Sometimes the word's changed. Any other thoughts? More in 2 weeks? Adjunctive. Okay. Great. Adjunct. Get it?
Adjunctive. Wow, good
Okay.
word.
I know. What a word. All right, friends. I think that's it. And then next slide. Again, thank you for letting me dive bomb. I didn't let any of my friends know, but I just realized we need to start talking about it. One more meeting at least of coming back just to flesh it out, and I might invite the people I talked to about it, all the different possibilities next time just to flesh it through. And other than that, next slide. Next homework is if anybody wants to download either the classification or the coding for food things. The classification is published on Tuesday because Sarah Bahal and I have a fair bit of work to do to get the classification ready after the subject matter expert final draft review. But the coding for food elements should be available on the Confluence at the end of the day tomorrow. Go team! A little bit of time back in your day. And we will see you on the new domain work call in a week. And, internal friends, if we need to talk more about it internally, just let me know. But thanks all for the wisdom. And I hope you all have a good evening. And I'm now going to humor my very persistent cat. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.